I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room on this Wednesday release of the episode instead of Tuesday. I want to thank everybody for your thoughts and prayers. My little puppy is doing a whole lot better. Still definitely going through a ton of treatment, so thank you all for your concerns. And then on top of that, coming in to record this episode, my puppy actually bit me in the face because I pressed his little sick belly in just the wrong spot. So after this episode, I'm going to get stitches. So it just continues to go down south at the Courtwright household. But nonetheless, I am bringing you a full Locker Room podcast episode. I will not sell you short. Hey, if you want to stay up to date with us, it's super simple now. Use your singular word, TLR Podcast 615. That is one word to access all things Locker Room. One word to access all things Locker Room. That is TLR Podcast 615. Today's episode, of course, is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Use your promo code TLRHOST for 15% off your first order. So just because we are in the middle of the NBA playoffs doesn't mean we are not going to talk a little NFL football. One of my favorite segments that I actually haven't done on the show, but I did on a show with a buddy of mine, Levi Bowman. It was called the NFL Hot Seat. We did it on a podcast over there. And I give you, going into the upcoming season, my top 10 players on the NFL Hot Seat who is in jeopardy for their job. Now, I'm not going to include coaches in this one, and I'm not going to include maybe owners. That's something that we'll probably add later on down the road. This is simply my top 10 players that are on the NFL Hot Seat. My first player up on this list, and I know this is going to be a little controversial for a lot of you because he is such a young player in the NFL. He's only been in the league, literally, this will be his second season, but that's Tua Tagovailoa. And I tell you this for this exact reason. Under veteran leadership last year, the Miami Dolphins were playing very good football. Fitzmagic, Ryan Fitzpatrick had this team playing at an elite level, had this team playing at a high-level playoff team at times. And so, of course, midway through, about 5 games in, they decided we're going to go ahead and make the switch to the young buck. They had the old bull, and now they want the young calf. See, the problem with inserting a young quarterback early is it usually and always leads to some sort of trouble. Whether that's a sophomore slump, which we might see with Justin Herbert. We saw that with Baker Mayfield. Came in, did a very good job when he came in his first year. Didn't do a great job in his sophomore year. Because these players, at some point, the game's going to catch up to them. Raw talent can only get them so far. They can only be so spectacular just on their raw talent. Young players, especially at the quarterback position, you've heard me preach this from, if you were with us live on the NFL Draft Show, if you ever hear me talk about young rookie quarterbacks, they need to sit to develop to be a better quarterback. Do you think Patrick Mahomes would be Patrick Mahomes right now if he didn't sit for a year? I don't believe so. I don't believe Patrick Mahomes could have come in on day one and be the Patrick Mahomes that we know. And it could change the course of his entire career. What if he gets in there and maybe has a shoulder injury because he doesn't know how to read the defense? He doesn't know how to read the zone blitz. He doesn't know how to cover up the football properly. Next thing we know, we have Patrick Mahomes with a broken collarbone and, or a dislocated shoulder that maybe bothers him his entire career. Football hits are going to happen. What I'm trying to say is that young quarterbacks need time to learn how to read defenses to keep them not only their longevity for their career, but their safety on the field. Young quarterbacks need time to develop a repertoire with their offensive line, with their wide receivers. Young rookie quarterbacks need time to learn the playbook and learn how to adjust in mid-game. Young rookie quarterbacks need time to learn how to be a leader in the locker room. Very few players come out and do what Justin Herbert did when he was he was put into the starting lineup. Very few players come out and win Rookie of the Year and have incredible numbers like Justin Herbert. Very few rookie quarterbacks. Now, like I said, those of you that have those quarterbacks that have had spectacular starts to their careers, we've seen them in their sophomore year slump because at some point the learning has got to catch up. At some point, there's going to be defenses that you've never seen. And unless you have time to sit there and learn how to read a defense properly and study these defenses and be able to learn under a veteran quarterback that can help you, you're always going to, at some point in your early NFL career, find a failing point, especially at the quarterback position. I think, honestly, mainly at the quarterback position. So the point is that Tua Tagovailoa from the beginning was done a disservice. In Week 8, when they decided to sit Ryan Fitzmagic. Now, at this point, it's not like the Dolphins were losing a bunch of games that they should have won. It's not like the Dolphins were playing terrible. The Dolphins were playing pretty decent football. Very good defense. Fitzmagic was playing at a pretty good level. That is the time that you let this ride out. You let Ryan Fitzmagic mentor Tua Tagovailoa. You let him just finish the rest of the season and let Tua Tagovailoa grow that entire time, learn that entire time, and not be rushed onto a field, especially after an injury. So the reason I say Tua Tagovailoa is on the hot seat is, yes, he was done a very bad disservice. He should have had time to be able to adjust quickly. He should have had time to rest a little bit more. He should have had time to learn a little bit more. But I don't know if it was the higher-ups in the front office. I don't know if it was the head coach pressing it. I don't know if they just felt the pressure from the fans because everybody's excited. You know, it's kind of like when you get a new toy and you're so excited to play with it, but maybe sometimes that toy is missing a screw and you just didn't want to wait. Well, now you can't play with that toy anymore because it's broken forever because you're missing that one screw. Don't break your quarterback forever because you didn't want to wait for that one screw to come in, that one missing piece to come in, whether it's his mental ability, whether it's learning how to read a defense, so a guy who just came off of hip surgery doesn't end up on hip surgery again. So from the beginning, he was done a disservice. But I have to take all of that out of account because at this point, he is their starting quarterback. They're selling out, and Tua Tagovailoa has no excuses. He can't put up another. There was a halftime stat line before he got benched when he became a starter. I think it was his second or third game as a starter where he had 81 yards, was like he was 4 for like 18 at halftime, playing abysmal, had an interception, and those are the kind of things that you can't have from a young rookie quarterback, especially early in his career, because mentally that's going to start weighing down on him. So the organization has a lot to blame as to why Tua Tagovailoa is on the hot seat, but nonetheless, Tua Tagovailoa at this point in his second year, you know, he's had his bad first rookie start. I mean, he had 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, so I guess it wouldn't be abysmal, but for me and for those of you who watch and actually watch the game closely, he was not very good at all. So this sophomore year, he has no excuse. He's on the hot seat. He has to step up and perform because this Dolphins team is built to win now. They've got a very good defense. They've got a very good offense. They've got a decent offensive line. They've got decent special teams. So at this point, Tua Tagovailoa is on the hot seat. We've heard all the hype. He was picked high in the draft. At this point, there's no more excuses. The Dolphins put themselves in this situation, and now Tua Tagovailoa has to deliver on that promise. Is that Tua Tagovailoa's fault? No. But at this point in time, there's nothing he can do about it. He either shows up, shuts up, and puts up, or Tua Tagovailoa might be finding himself on another team in the very near future. We don't want to see a Josh Rosen situation where Josh Rosen was pressed in to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. He wasn't ready, didn't have any time to develop. Next thing you know, Josh Rosen's either a backup, a third stringer, or he's out of the league. Don't do your rookie quarterbacks a disservice by throwing them into the mix. The only reason Justin Herbert stepped foot on that field is because Tyrod Taylor ended up getting hurt. And then Justin Herbert was just so spectacular that you would have looked straight up dumb trying to bench him. That is the only difference. If Tua Tagovailoa came out and was dropping 300-yard games and they were winning games, no one would be putting Tua Tagovailoa on the hot seat. But I have to, because the organization has put him in this position, and now Tua Tagovailoa has to cash their checks. So player number one for me on the hot seat this year is Tua Tagovailoa. And what I mean by hot seat, guys, is I also don't mean that they're going to be fired at the end of this year or they're an NFL bust at the end of this year. I just mean that they're going to be paid a lot more attention to, and if they don't start delivering sooner rather than later, they might not find themselves on the team that they so desire in the near future. So if I'm Tua Tagovailoa, listen, I got to cash those checks sooner rather than later because I do not want to be the starting quarterback for the Houston Texans in the very near future. My second player on the hot seat, and this one should be pretty obvious here. My Bears, the Chicago Bears, and Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton's got to be on the hot seat. Now, Khalil Mack is an interesting one for me because Khalil Mack has a track record of being a very good player. He has a track record of being one of the best rushers in the entire NFL, and I almost put him on this list, but I ended up holding him off because we have seen production off and on. But Andy Dalton, he went down to the Cowboys last season. Of course, we all know the abysmal season that was and what craziness it was. He knew he wasn't going to be the guy in Dallas. But I don't think he realized that he is the guy in Chicago, at least for the time being. Chicago's telling Andy Dalton that he is the guy no matter what from day one, which, like I said, now don't get me wrong, I'd love to see the monsters of the Midway. I'd love to see Justin Fields finally make his debut and Chicago finally have a quarterback that I don't want to, at the end of the day, punch in the face because he throws so many interceptions like Jay Cutler or Rex Grossman or any of the other abysmal people. Hell, Nick Foles from last season, Mitchell Trubisky. Name the abysmal quarterback, and they have played for the Chicago Bears at least 3 seasons and started way too many games than they should have, right? So I don't want to see a Justin Fields situation where he's thrown in there, he's asked to fix a mess. I think that this bought Matt Nagy, and if we were talking about coaches on the hot seat, I'd definitely probably include him. I don't think that this is going to put Matt Nagy in any kind of jeopardy because they're going to let Justin Fields develop the right way, and when he's ready to come on the field, and that might be week 5, that might be week 6. There's the difference. Some players might develop a little bit quicker, and if that is week 6 or 7, then start him into that lineup. But I want Andy Dalton to make it hard on Justin Fields to have to step on that field. Listen, Andy Dalton says he has a lot more in the tank. The Red Rocket says he has a lot more in the arm. He's fine. He's good to go, and he had some decent plays for the Dallas Cowboys. But what Andy Dalton can't do is slip up once, especially in a town like Chicago. Listen, Chicago is a very, very unforgiving city. They were very unforgiving to the Cubs for 108 years, and even though we loved our Cubs, it took us 108 years to finally win that chip and, make me and my brother and my father cry on a couch together. But we were very unforgiving to the Cubs. We will boo our own teams out of our stadiums without a question. You know how most stadiums or most teams and most fans in the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, wherever, they're not going to sit there and boo their own team. Well, guess what? Chicago people will. We'll sit there and boo the Cubs out of their own home game. The Chicago Bulls have been booed, I think, every game ever since Michael Jordan left and won his last championship in whatever it was, 93. Like, Chicago's a very unforgiving city. And the second Andy Dalton has a game where it's 3 interceptions, 1 touchdown for 179 yards, and a Bears loss, Andy Dalton will find himself sitting on a bench. So Andy Dalton, the Red Rocket, is going to find himself on the red hot seat very early in this upcoming NFL season. At number 3, arguably the hottest of the seats in the NFL, that goes to Mr. Cam Newton. We knew that Cam Newton last year was coming off a shoulder surgery, coming off a shoulder injury. We knew he was going to be rusty. And definitely his balls, his accuracy, his footballs, his accuracy, everything was definitely a little off last year. We did not see, we were not getting Super Bowl Cam Newton. Well, you don't want Super Bowl Cam Newton because then he'll choke. But we were not seeing Cam Newton of his MVP season throughout the regular season, right? We didn't see Cam Newton in any kind of form that he looked terrifying to other teams. He looked like a subpar quarterback who didn't have a deep ball, wasn't very accurate in between the sticks, and was used basically as a running quarterback the entire season. So Cam Newton apparently is back to being 100% healthy. He has no excuses now. He's been rehabbed fully. He's been cleared by every team doctor that's ever been known to man, it seems like. He has 0 excuses this year to be terrible on the football field. He has 0 excuses this year to not throw a better football. He has 0 excuses this year considering that Bill Belichick went out and got him all kinds of toys to play with. His offensive line's rebuilt. His defense is back to being at least respectable in the NFL. He's got wide receivers. This guy has a backfield as well. So Cam Newton has 0 excuses. But I think the biggest reason of all that he's on the hot seat, he has a NFL starting quarterback behind him in Mack Jones. Mack Jones is arguably the most prepped to instantly walk out on an NFL field and find success. Why? Mack Jones's game is very, very, very simple. He is the Joe Flacco of the world. He is someone who can deliver a very accurate football. He doesn't need a whole lot of time in the pocket to deliver that football, and he is a very simple person. He is a very simple quarterback. While Mack Jones can, of course, get out of the pocket a little bit that we've seen in college, I don't know that we can see that in the NFL. While Mack Jones has a little more athleticism than a Joe Flacco, he is a prototypical pocket passer, get it out of your hand quick, and if you can get him to get the ball out of his hand quick, he can burn you pretty quick. He can rank up a lot of yards on you. He can beat you in a close game if you let him get into that rhythm. Think about Joe Flacco when he made his Super Bowl run. Joe Flacco was averaging like 5.3 yards a catch and throw, and that was simply because every route was a crossing route. So he is built for New England. He's going to learn the playbook. He's a very above average intelligence quarterback. He's very game ready right now, especially built to what New England does. Now, if Mack Jones was in Chicago, if Mack Jones was in Miami, if he was in the Chargers, if he was in wherever else, I don't think he finds the success that he can find in New England. So Cam Newton has a guy right behind him that if Cam Newton's going to deliver wobbly balls, 5-yard crossing routes, if he's going to overshoot guys 10 yards deep, if he's going to not be able to deliver a semi-accurate deep ball, if he's not going to be able to get out of the pocket any more than a Mack Jones can, then Mack Jones is going to slide up and take his spot. I think Mack Jones is going to be the most likely quarterback that we see out of the rookies, especially early on. So Mack Jones is going to be right there, and I believe Cam Newton is going to be out of the starting lineup probably by week 3. Cam Newton on the biggest hot seat of this entire year. Well, let's get out of the quarterbacks and let's go to tight ends. Evan Ingram, tight end for the New York Giants, is definitely on the hot seat. Now, out of the quarterbacks, Evan Ingram might be the biggest one on the hot seat this year, besides maybe Odell Beckham Jr., but Odell Beckham Jr. is definitely coming off of injury, and he's on my list, so we'll talk about him in just a few. Let's stick with Evan Ingram. Listen, Evan Ingram was promised to come in and basically be the savior at the tight end position for the New York Giants. He has underwhelmed every New York Giants fan over the last 2 years. Now, Evan Ingram has dealt with a little bit of injury here and there. We got that. And if you're a fantasy owner, I'm sure that you have spent many a nights bashing your head against a table because Evan Ingram gives you 2 catches and 9 yards. Now, he was still second on the team with 80-plus catches last year. Or 60-plus catches last year, excuse me. But Evan Ingram has not lived up to the dynamic playmaking, scoring, blocking tight end that everybody assumed he was going to be when he joined the New York Giants. Now, the New York Football Giants have had pieces that they finally have had to get in place, right? They needed a quarterback. I think they found their guy in Daniel Jones. They needed wide receivers. They went out and got wide receivers in this offseason. This New York Giants offense, especially with the addition of Saquon Barkley coming back off of injury, is no joke. I mean, it's not a laughable offense like we have seen in the past years. But this Giants offense is going to go as Evan Ingram goes. Here's why. Of course, we know what Saquon Barkley is going to do. And usually runners of the football that are that spectacular, the Christian McCaffreys, the Saquon Barkleys, the Derrick Henrys, usually those guys are going to get 100, 120 yards no matter what. That's their wake up. I'm going to go give you 120 yards and probably 2 touchdowns while we're on the goal line if we can get down there. And that's going to be their average wake up and play. Daniel Jones is going to be able to deliver to at least good wide receivers this year. He's got Galladay. He's got some other weapons finally. It seems like after years of not having anybody, which is another problem that, of course, we saw Sam Darnold have. Basically, they traded away every help that he basically had. But he finally has some weapons on the wide receiver position. But the tight end position is becoming more and more valuable in the NFL, more than I think people understand. The tight end position is how most coaches attack a defense. Tight ends are so diverse. They have to be great blockers. They have to be very good catchers of the football. Why do you think you see Tom Brady advocate for his tight ends? Why do you think Tom Brady begging Rob Gronkowski to come out of retirement was such an important piece for him? Because Rob Gronkowski, and we saw what happened in the Super Bowl. That's the thing. You look at what happened in the Super Bowl with Rob Gronkowski. Because the dynamic of the tight end position is that they can be run blocking, and be very good at it, and sell it to such a precise point that when they break off of that run blocking to go out for a pass, it has now changed the entire flow of that defense. When that defense is now used to have to is used to having to run into that tight end and be blocked by that tight end, and that tight end is now releasing and putting a move on you, it throws a defense off. Look at Kansas City. What would Kansas City be without Travis Kelce? I'm being serious. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, they still have one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Great. How well does he do when he doesn't have Travis Kelce to take off the middle of that defense? He's going to get his yards. But look what happened in Indianapolis. T.Y. Hilton is a speedster. T.Y. Hilton is a get-behind-the-defense guy. But when you don't have Jack Doyle, when you don't have a tight end that can create separation and can give you a good middle-of-the-football field passing game, you can't open up. And Evan Ingram is that missing piece for this Giants offense. They will go as Evan Ingram goes. If he can start attacking the center of that defense, because that's what mainly tight ends do. Tight ends get into the fray, they get behind the linebackers, they get in front of the linebackers. Tight ends are a linebacker's worst nightmare because they're always there. They're the fly on the linebacker's wall, right? So if Evan Ingram can start attacking the center of that defense, if they can start opening up the side lanes for Saquon Barkley to bump the ball outside, now you have a dynamic offense. Evan Ingram is on the hot seat. And if he does not perform this year, I'm saying, mark my words. I will put this down in history. It's on the Locker Room Podcast, episode 61. If he does not have a good to great season this year, Evan Ingram is gone. Another player on my hot seat, Dee Ford, the defensive end for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, that's a very obscure player. Here's the deal. Ever since Dee Ford got his giant money in the bag, right? Ever since Dee Ford got his payday and everybody praising him as one of the best DNs in the entire NFL, Dee Ford has done jack all for that San Francisco defense. That San Francisco defense, if they had Dee Ford playing at an elite level with Bosa on the other side, would be one of the best defenses in the NFL simply on the front line alone. Why do you think you see the Los Angeles Rams have a successful season every single year? Because Aaron Donald can do what Aaron Donald does, and guess what? That frees up the other end of the defense to start opening more pressure lanes. Dee Ford is the key that can unlock Bosa being one of the best defensive ends in the entire NFL. Now, of course, we know Bosa was injured. And man, it seems like all great players just keep getting injured as of late. I mean, look at the NFL or the NBA playoffs; it's just a injury nightmare. But Dee Ford is gone if he does not fix this now. The problem we see with, especially in the NFL, when players get their bag, when players get what they think they're owed, these players tend to stop working, tend to stop improving. They're okay with just settling by. Look at Lawrence in Dallas. Lawrence gets his massive payday, right? One of the largest, highest paid in the NFL. And what has he done? What has he done since he got his bag? It's kind of the same situation. Honestly, I could have put Lawrence on this list as well. But Dee Ford is averaging not even, and this is the crazy part for somebody who is averaging almost 5 to 6 pressures and or sacks a game, which he's not averaging 6 sacks a game, but pressures are knockdowns of the quarterback, or disrupting a pass. He was averaging 5 to 6 of those a game, and he's averaging, 1.2? Not even, just above 1? You can't get all this bag. You can't get all this money and then produce crap like that. Lawrence has no excuse. I mean, Dallas is in the same boat, and I'm honestly going to lump Lawrence in with Dee Ford here. If these two don't start producing again after they got their bag, they're gone. And the problem is, they're never going to get another contract again. Now, I'm saying they're going to be out of the NFL, but I'm saying they're never going to get another 2 to 3 year contract. They're going to get traded to, Dee Ford's going to end up for the New York Jets, and he'll bounce around for a couple of teams, and then we'll see the exact same thing with Lawrence. He'll bounce around to a couple different teams, and they'll be valuable for maybe half a season or a season, and then you just see them slowly dwindle out of the NFL. We see this happen all the time in the NFL. Ezekiel Elliott was on the same hot seat last year. I mean, he had the excuse of his star quarterback got hurt and the offensive line was getting hurt and blah, blah, blah. I got that. But Zeke, before all that was happening, was playing bad football. Zeke got his bag. Zeke said, man, I'm rich now. Who cares? And Zeke kind of gave up, it seemed like. So Dee Ford's on a massive hot seat. Honestly, I'm going to throw Lawrence right in with him. We talked about this guy a little bit earlier. Odell Beckham Jr. is on the hot seat. Now, he is coming off of an injury. We got that, and he looks very explosive in all his training videos, looks explosive at training camp. We got all that. You can look great on film. It's how you play on Sunday. I think the most important thing is, can Odell Beckham Jr. play nice? Can Odell Beckham Jr. learn to gel with Jarvis Landry on the other side? Learn to share the rock with Njoku. Learn to share the ball with Kareem Hunt. Learn to share the ball with Nick Chubb. Learn to be a part of a system, not the system. He was great in New York. Guess what? New York really had nobody. He was the guy, and it was fun for him. He kicked, he kicked over nets. He got hit in the face by nets. He made a jackass of himself several times. He was fine being the system. Eli was fine with him being the system. They had nothing at the time. He no longer is the system. He needs to play in a system. So if Odell doesn't start playing nice, this is a move that could happen midseason. I'm not joking. I think Odell Beckham Jr. could be gone midseason if he does not, from day one, understand that this is a team that is built to be a Super Bowl contender. They are. They've got the defense. They added Jadeveon Clowney in the offseason. They beefed up the defensive backs. Like Baker Mayfield is definitely a massive part of this. But Odell Beckham Jr. is definitely on the hot seat. He's got to learn to start playing nice with others. He's got to learn how to take either if they want him to be the guy or the secondary guy, whatever game it is. And I believe that this team, it could vary between Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. as to who's having the hot hand, who's got the best matchup. He's got to learn to go with the flow and stop trying to be the system. Next up on my list is going to be Carson Wentz. Now, I think this is one that is not going to gander a whole lot of argument from a lot of people because Carson Wentz has had something to prove for the last 2 or 3 seasons, and he had the continual excuse, A, injuries, that's number one, and B, they were a bad football team in Philadelphia. They had 0 weapons. They got Jalen Reagor, who ended up getting hurt halfway through the season. They had no offensive line to open up running lanes. It was an abysmal offense. It was a terrible team. The Philadelphia Eagles are a sad sack of a show already again ever since their magical season when Nick Foles led them to the Super Bowl. So he has had something to prove for the last several years, but he has been given the "it's okay, your team sucks" pass. Well, guess what? He's going to Indianapolis. They don't have that excuse. They have arguably the best defense in the NFL. I don't know why people are continually disrespecting this team. I mean, they are loaded. And I'm pretty sure they got, Kwity Paye in the draft? Like, I don't even want to talk, especially as a Tennessee Titans supporter. It just makes me want to cry thinking how good that Indianapolis defense is. He's got the defense to be able to keep the offense on the field. He's got the wide receivers. Listen, we know Jack Doyle's coming off of injury. We know that T.Y. Hilton's back with the team. We saw what some of the rookies did last year. He's got a backfield. He's got Jonathan Taylor. He's got Naheem Hines. He's got Marlon Mack. That backfield is one of the best backfields in the NFL if we're talking about a full backfield roster. He has every single opportunity to revive his career, every single opportunity to be back in that MVP conversation, and he is definitely on the hot seat. This isn't Indianapolis suffered through with Phillip Rivers, and he gave everything that he had, but he was at the tail end of his career. Carson Wentz is in a very delicate situation. If he does not perform for these Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz is no longer going to be an Indianapolis Colt. They are past the point of discussion. They are past the point of giving quarterback chances. They, at this point, I think, are going to just blow up the offense and draft a rookie quarterback next year or try and make a big move maybe for a Russell Wilson and they'll lose a bunch of assets or whatever it is. Whatever they're going to do in the offseason if Carson Wentz doesn't work out is going to be major. Carson doesn't have 3 to 4 years here to try and figure it out. Everybody's not going to give him that chance either. We have seen him be in the MVP conversation. He now doesn't just get to be an okay quarterback to good quarterback. He has to be back to being a great quarterback. If Carson is not in MVP form, Carson will not be an Indianapolis Colt in the very near future. Next up on my list, Jimmy Garoppolo. He is in a very similar situation as Andy Dalton is. They don't want to start their young star QB. They don't want to start their young rookie QB. But if everything goes sideways, San Francisco is not going to continue to wait around. Kyle Shanahan, Mike Shanahan, basically every Shanahan that's ever existed that works for the 49ers organization, they understand. They are on the hot seat themselves. They can't afford to have Jimmy Garoppolo go out there and lose them another Super Bowl by not being able to deliver an accurate 15-yard ball. Think about this, guys. If he delivers an accurate that out route, if he delivers an accurate 15-yard football, the San Francisco 49ers have won a Super Bowl, and we might not be talking about Patrick Mahomes in the light that we are talking about him now, as a Super Bowl champion, MVP, and all that. Not saying he's not great, but we wouldn't be talking about him like that if Jimmy Garoppolo was able to conquer that team. Listen, Trey Lance, I believe, needs to be sitting for at least a year, and especially behind a smart, talented quarterback, but a quarterback that just seems to miss the mark in Jimmy Garoppolo. It seems like Jimmy Garoppolo is missing just that one extra thing. You know, in like Space Jam, where Bugs Bunny has the water bottle that's filled with his secret stuff, he's just missing that one secret thing. He's good. He's fine. He's led you to a Super Bowl, but he's just missing that one thing that puts him at the very top. And then the real question that the San Francisco 49ers are going to ask themselves midway through the season, if they continue to have a losing season, if Jimmy Garoppolo continues to underwhelm, as we have seen him go from literally top 5 quarterback in the NFL all the way down to 30s ever since he lost that Super Bowl, if the San Francisco 49ers are going to be asking, can Trey Lance at least do what he's doing? And if that's the case, they're going to sit Jimmy Garoppolo and he's going to be gone next season, and you will see a young Trey Lance leading this football franchise this season. I don't believe it should happen. I believe that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to come back from injury, but if he can't stay healthy, if he can't muster up the courage to start throwing more accurate footballs and work on his football game, you're going to see Trey Lance at the quarterback helm. We've got 2 more here for you. Second to last one, Julio Jones. Now, I don't believe that Julio Jones really is on the hot seat, or that we should be questioning, is Julio Jones a top 5 wide receiver, blah, 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 blah. But this is something that does need to be addressed because he's being crapped on by so many people. Julio Jones is still a top 3 wide receiver. I believe it goes... I'm not even going to put him in my order because I honestly haven't thought about it. But I know who the top 3 guys are. Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones. Those are your 3 top guys in the NFL. You can put him in whatever order you want. It won't make me mad either way. Devontae, he could be first. Hopkins could be first. I could see Julio being first. Julio doesn't have an injury problem. That is something that the media wants to push. If you look at it, actually statistically, he's really not missing that many games. And we talked about this on the show a couple weeks ago. He was still leading the NFL in most yards per game, literally being out half the season. So that's sad in and of itself that a guy who was injured half the year still was leading the NFL in yards per game. But if we're going to go down this narrative that Julio Jones has something to prove, that Julio Jones needs to come out and be the best version of Julio Jones that he has to be, this is the season to prove. So I'm going to put him on the hot seat for that simple reason. For the simple reason that everybody wants to trash Julio Jones, I'm going to put him on the hot seat. I don't believe that Julio Jones is going to have a bad season. In fact, I believe Julio Jones is going to have one of his best seasons of his entire career at Nashville, and I'm very excited to see the Tennessee Titans power all the way through. Go Titans, tighten up. So I believe the Tennessee Titans not only win this division, I'm going to go ahead and say that on record now, even though we're going to talk about that way later down the road. I believe that Julio Jones has the best year of his career, and I'm going to keep him on the hot seat. Let's see if he lives up to all the expectations that I have, or if he proves a lot of you sports podcasters and a lot of you sports talk show hosts right. Last but not least, on the hot seat, the entire Packers organization. The Packers have one job, and that's secure Aaron Rodgers. If they can't secure Aaron Rodgers, the entire organization is on the hot seat. Everybody's going to be fired. Now, you can't fire the owner because the owner's the people, basically. But head coach Matt LaFleur might be gone. I just, for me at least, it would be for me. I know he'll probably stay. Jordan Love, I've heard, is god-awful. But if they're gonna go down this road and they're gonna burn the Aaron Rodgers bridge, every single Packers player, every single Packers coach, every single Packers anything, hell, even the fans, even the fans are the owners, so all the Packers fans and owners, everybody's on the hot seat because it will be one of the biggest blunders in sports history if you let a guy like Aaron Rodgers walk out your door. Well, there are my top 10 players on the hot seat, and then of course the Packers organization as well. Listen, I have a lot of Packers people, or Packers fans that listen to this, so I just want to say something for you. Coming closely, go Bears. It was nice that you won the division the last several years with Aaron Rodgers. But once you don't have Aaron Rodgers to hide behind anymore, watch out because the monsters of the Midway are about to take back that division. Now, let's talk a little NBA viewership woes. So it's no secret that the NBA views have been slowly declining over the last several years. In fact, they're down around 38.9%, so basically 39%, since 2016, which was one of the heights of the NBA at the time. And of course, you had LeBron James, Golden State, the 3-1 comeback. So that was a fun era to be around, right? But ever since then, they've been going down steadily by about a third of their viewership since 2016, and it's even worse in the postseason. Well, I know a lot of people were tired of seeing LeBron versus Steph and all these super teams, and I do believe that that's a big part of it. But I think an even bigger part is the death of David Stern. Whenever he passed, he ran the league in a way where it was run like a business, the way it should be run. He was one of the best sports owners at the time across the board, or sports commissioners, because David Stern had a simple rule. Is it best for the game or is it best for the player? He split it into two categories. And he usually sided on, is it best for the game? See, what Stern did so well is Stern decided that he was going to make sure that the league was properly balanced. He was going to make sure that if there was a super team, I put it in quotation marks, that they were going to have some sort of kryptonite. They were going to have more teams that could beat their weaknesses. Listen, the Miami Heat, we want to call that a super team, but they really didn't have a big man presence. They had Birdman Anderson and Chris Bosh was not a relative big man at the time. And the big man was very important back in that time. So that team had flaws across the board. San Antonio was there that could combat them. They had the Dallas Mavericks. We all know what happened there in 2011. But he ran it and rejected trades all the time because it was better for the game. He rejected Chris Paul and LeBron James joining up. He rejected Carmelo Anthony joining the Boston Celtics. He rejected Paul Pierce being traded, I think it was to New York at the time with Carmelo Anthony. Like, he rejected all these different trade scenarios because it was better for the game. It was better for the viewer. The second the NBA started being controlled by the players is the second the NBA started to decline. Why? Because the players don't know what's best for the players. The players don't know what's best for the viewers, don't know what's best for the fans, don't know what's best for the league, don't know what's best for everything. Because the players have their own self-interest at heart. Now, I'm not saying that we should run it as harsh as possible and give the players absolutely no freedom, because you're never going to find balance that way. You're either going to have pissed off players or a pissed off league. Well, at this point, you have a pissed off everything. The players are always mad. The league's always struggling with viewership. And now, the fans are just checked out. Especially, this has been one of the better playoff series in years that I've seen in several years, probably all the way back to 2016, maybe even 2018. Kawhi in Toronto. This is one of those one of the better years that we've had in the playoffs, but the viewership is declining. Why? Because the NBA is doing a horrible job at promoting team basketball, promoting teams and organizations. We're just trying to promote the biggest name at the time. See, what's happening now is Adam Silver just allows anybody and everybody to team up. Create your super team. He allowed James Harden to go to the Brooklyn Nets. Is that bullcrap? Absolutely, considering the Rockets, basically all they got was draft capital back. Like, that's the kind of stuff right there that Stern would have said absolutely not. James Harden's not pairing up with Kevin Durant, and he's not pairing up with Kyrie Irving, and they're not going to form this giant mega super team that if injury didn't prevent them from winning the championship, probably would have won the championship. It is better for basketball that the Brooklyn Nets failed than it would ever be if they won. It is better for basketball that we didn't see Kawhi Leonard, LeBron James, and Anthony Davis team up. It is better for basketball that we're not seeing all these mega teams sprout up again. Stern understood that people enjoyed balance. People enjoyed competitive series. People don't want to go out and watch the Brooklyn Nets with the three probably best individual scorers in the game right now, if we're being honest. James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, the three best individual scorers, all on one team just chucking up 1,000 shots a night. Stern understood that the more power he gave to the players to decide where they wanted to go, the more messed up the league was going to get. Because it just turns into an AAU basketball circuit. James Harden wants out of Houston. He complains enough. He complains so much that eventually they just send him to where he wants to go. And now you have a super team up in Brooklyn. Now, Brooklyn's fine with that, but is half the other league? No. Stern understood that. He understood that the integrity of the game was not to just create these AAU-type style basketball teams. And listen, LeBron James is a big part of that discussion for what he did in Miami. But I thought Stern did a great job of, LeBron signed with Miami. That's fine. And they gave him some complimentary pieces in Wade and Chris Bosh. But he did a great job of saying, listen, he came out and talked about it. They said, is this a wrap? Are the Heat going to win 5 straight, 6 straight? You know, what LeBron and Dwayne Wade said, not 7, not 8, blah, blah, blah. He's like, listen, do you not know that there's a team called San Antonio that has Tim Duncan, that has Manu Ginobili, that has Tony Parker? Do you not know that there's a Dallas Mavericks team that has Jason Terry, that has Sean Marion, that has Dirk Nowitzki? Do you not know that there's some very good teams out there that are very capable of beating this Miami Heat team and did beat this Miami Heat team? He talked about that. He understood that the balance of the league was more important than just letting all these players run in chaos. Adam Silver, here's what I like about Adam Silver. Yes, he's a player's owner or commissioner, and I got that. And he's always going to have the players' best interest at heart, as well as he should. You want your players to be happy. But he has given them not only more power, he has given them the reins to the whole operation and said, you complain, you bitch and moan, and you complain so much that you whine and cry to where they kick you off the team, and they'll send you to wherever the hell you want to go. James Harden complained enough, now he's in Brooklyn. He just whined, I'm not going to play. Well, it's bad for basketball if James Harden doesn't play. So instead of saying, hey, James, I'm not going to allow a trade to Brooklyn, Houston, you find another match and you send James down to, New Orleans. You send James up to Toronto. You send him down to the Magic. I don't care where. Instead of making these players, respect the organization, he's just allowing them to just sign and trade wherever they want. Everybody can join up and make an AAU Super League team. And this is the balance and the reason that people don't understand how good Devin Booker is. People don't understand the importance of Chris Paul to the Suns. People don't understand that Giannis is a little bit overrated and that Chris Middleton is blown way out of proportion. People don't understand that the Clippers have one of the deeper teams in the NBA. People don't understand all this different stuff. Why? Because they're so worried about these big name athletes whining and crying their way to championships that we don't care about the competitive spirit of basketball anymore. We don't care about the competitive spirit of doing it with the guys that you have. Listen, there are instances where that's not going to work. Portland is doing nothing to help Damian Lillard. If Damian Lillard goes and teams up with, name the team, I don't care. If he goes up to Boston and it's him and Jason Tatum, that's a very valuable option to come out of the East. That's a team that could do that, right? With Jaylen Brown. I'm okay with stuff like that. I'm not okay with Adam Silver allowing these players to just whine and cry, and they're manipulating their current organization to just do whatever they want, say whatever they want, be however they want. Sometimes they'll sit out games. Sometimes they won't. Sometimes we're going to cancel it because of something political going on. Sometimes we're not. He's letting the players run the league. He's not running the league. What Stern understood is that basketball and its integrity meant more to the people watching it than it did to the players playing the game. When's the last time Adam Silver rejected a trade? When's the last time Adam Silver put his foot down and said, no, that's not going to happen? I can't recall a time. We saw Stern do that all the time, and it was always for the betterment of the league. What if Chris Paul and LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh all joined up together? It would have been dumb. Let's be honest. I'm a LeBron James lover. I'm LeBron James, so he's my GOAT, right? But it would have been dumb. Golden State, when they were allowed to have KD, dumb. That's something that should have been X'd real quick. The fact that Brooklyn was able to add James Harden, it's just dumb. They complain, they whine, they go join up with super teams. When are we going to have a commissioner come out and say, hey, this is not better for the league. This isn't better for the fans. The fans aren't being able to experience good basketball. These are some of the best playoffs we've had in a very long time. Since the Kawhi Leonard in Toronto years, since the LeBron James in 2016, these are fun, competitive series. You have the Clippers with no Kawhi Leonard, who are right there neck and neck with the Suns, who are the best team in the NBA and all this other stuff, and Devin Booker's an emerging star, and hell, not Trey Lance, we were talking about football earlier, but Trae Young Trae Young is on the verge, if Giannis is out, of leading the Atlanta Hawks. I'm not even joking. To the NBA Finals. We had the Miami Heat last year. We had the Hawks coming in hot this year, playing the Bucks. Like, listen, this is great basketball. But Adam Silver has diluted this league so bad, and he's allowed the players to run it down and run their mouths, and he's ran it in a politically driven mind with the players having full control of everything, that there are no viewers anymore. There's a reason your views are down almost 40%. There's a reason no one cares about these playoffs, because they're turning the NBA off. It's not that they don't care about good competition. It's not that they don't care about basketball. They don't care what you have to say politically. They don't care about a bunch of whiny brats who complain about where they are on the basketball court and just can simply say, oh, I don't want to play here anymore, so send me to Houston. I don't want to play here anymore, send me to Orlando. Send me here, send me there. I mean, let's be honest, no one wants to go to Orlando right now. But that's the problem. It's a sports league. I understand, and I'm okay with you making a political statement if it's for the right cause, if it's for the right, if it's for justice, right? I don't care about that. I don't care about you supporting the LGBT community. I don't care about any of that. I think that's actually your right to do that and your civil right to do that. You should do that. If you have the opportunity to provide moments, Breast Cancer Awareness Month and allowing the players to wear pink. If you have the opportunity to raise money for those organizations, and help those organizations, I'm not mad about that. But I am mad when the commissioner comes out and is talking to me and policing me about my politics in my own household and is telling me, well, you can't watch basketball unless you align with our beliefs or whatever. That's not true. You're turning people off. Basketball is about the love of the game and is about the strong history that's entitled, and all the great men that have played in this league. And I think Charles Barkley said the exact same thing. He said it so great. He's just like, listen, at what point are we just going to play basketball and enjoy the sport again? One of the most powerful quotes in sports history came from Michael Jordan. Listen, he said, Republicans buy sneakers too. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum you land on. It's the fact that, listen, we're here to do a job. We're here to play a game. And we're here to perform. So just do that. It's not saying don't have a voice. It's not saying don't be an activist. It's not saying, and this is my problem with Kyrie Irving, it's not saying if you believe in something so strongly that you need to take weeks of basketball off to not do that. It's saying if you believe that strongly and you need to change the world, then guess what? Quit playing basketball. Stop yelling at all the reporters who are wondering why you've been gone for 3 weeks. Oh, well, I'm an activist. I'm doing X, Y, Z. It's like, great. Shut the hell up. Stop yelling at these poor reporters just trying to figure out what you're doing or where you're at. When you're complaining about, you can't complain to the reporters about that when they're just doing their job. You can make listen, good people, and this is probably the best way to put it, and I'm not a political show and I don't want to get political. We all can get behind what's right. That's probably the best way to put it. We can all get behind what's right. And you can have a voice for what's right. LGBTQ, you absolutely should have the right to do whatever the hell you want, to get married, to be in love. The black community, you have the right to speak about Black Lives Matter. The white community, you have the right to talk about macaroni and cheese if you want to. I mean, but you get what I'm trying to say. You have the right to stand up for what's right, and you should talk about what's right. You should have a Pride Month. You should have a Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You should have a Children's Hospital Month and all that stuff. You should do that because that's a good duty and a good civil right, and you can raise money for these organizations and help the cause. But there's a big difference between doing that and simply being an activist trying to preach to your audience and preach to your fans. We're not here for that. I mean, how many athletes are you saying, that the national anthem shouldn't be a point of contention? And the reason is when your organization, and I think the NFL has done a great job. The NFL has done a great job, and I know I'm not a big Roger Goodell fan at all, but they have done a great job of learning how to figure out that balance. We are going to let the players have a voice. We are going to let the players put a sticker on their helmet if they'd like to. We're going to let the players speak out or go to a rally if they want to and talk about what they feel so passionate about. We are going to have Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We are going to have a children's hospital month. We're going to have all this other stuff. And we're going to make sure that it's a singular voice from the top. And the NBA has allowed their players to run around and do whatever they want. And now you have 30 different voices, some bashing the fans for not doing this, some doing this, some doing that. And then you have Adam Silver running around. So not only if we're looking at the analytics of the game have changed under Adam Silver and from Stern. Adam Silver, like I said, he's allowing these people to make basketball anarchy. You don't get to just control whatever you want because you complain enough. You don't get to go to another team because you complain enough. You don't get to just not show up and play basketball games if you complain enough. Howard Stern, David Stern did a great job of, hey, you're not going to do these back-to-backs of just taking nights off because you don't feel like playing. Stern stood for what was right. And that is all I'm asking the NBA to get back to doing. If the NBA was basketball-centered, if it was player and commissioner balanced, if we didn't have so much power to the players right now and so much power to the commissioner and all the owners, if we could find a balance like we had at one point, there was a balance at one point. If we could all agree upon, sit down in a players meeting and say, hey, this is what we are going to stand for. This is what we are always going to support. The LGBTQ, Black Lives Matter, whatever it is. Figure out what you're going to support in your singular voice, because that is what the NFL has done. And the NFL is booming in ratings every single year. Yeah, it might have dipped it from time to time. But at the end of the day, the NFL has done a much better job unifying their league and unifying their players than the NBA ever will, if they don't figure it out now. Find a singular voice, and then you might see your ratings go back up. Well, listen, I know that got a little bit preachy there, got a little bit more serious, but it's something that I'm just very passionate about. I hate seeing a sport that I love, that I grew up watching, that in the NBA, was such a great season this year, was such a great postseason. I know it doesn't have LeBron and it doesn't have KD and all that anymore, but it's still such a great season. We've got so many great series. I hate seeing all of that go to waste and losing viewers by the day. If we could all just get on the same page, and I think the NFL is one of the best places to look at for that example, because they're doing such a great job of allowing players to be free and to have a voice and to be activists and to stand for what they believe in. That's the most important thing. We talked about this with the UFC, and I'm not going to get back into it, but the UFC does a great job of allowing people to be people, allowing them to believe what they want to believe, but staying out of the individual political side. The UFC stands for what's right. The NFL has done a good job of standing for what's right. We all can agree on what's right in life. This isn't about Democrat or Republican. It's about what's right. Find out what's right. Find out what you're going to believe in. Find out what singular voice the NBA is going to have, and I think you're going to find your viewers coming back. But that's it, guys. That's the show. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this is kind of a crazy one. It's been a weird one. I appreciate everybody joining me, and thank you all for all the prayers and everything. The dog's getting better. We got several days of medicine and shots and all kinds of stuff coming up. So just, we really appreciate all the thoughts and prayers. And listen, if you enjoy the show, share it with a friend. You've got one name and one name only. That is TLR Podcast 615 to share. That it gets you access to all things locker room. So follow us on there. Share us with a friend. Once again, everybody, I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.